If you're a Pokemon fan and you saw the new trailer for Pokémon Legends Arceus, you probably got really excited. I mean, probably not this excited, but if you're anything like me, you saw those Pokéballs at the beginning of the trailer and said to yourself, I want one. Well, they don't exactly exist yet, so I had to make one myself. I wanted to make this ball as realistic as possible, so I included a couple cool features, such as adding a puff of steam. And it opens and closes like any good Pokeball should. So, how did I go about making this? Well, first, I started with a toy Pokeball as a reference, and then I used Tinkercad to model all of the pieces. And as you could see, it took quite a bit of modeling to get this right. In fact, I had to print over 30 pieces until I finally printed out the parts that made it into the final product. Speaking of which, here's the final parts. The bottom half was actually printed out by my friend, who has a spool of PLA that actually has a fair amount of wood inside of it. So yeah, we're getting as authentic as possible here. My first step was to spray all the other pieces with this primer and filler. This will fill in some of the holes and make sanding a bit easier. Speaking of which, my next step was to try out my new electric sander, and man was this thing loud. Afterwards, I brought all the pieces inside and started sanding by hand. First I started with 100 grit, and afterwards I finished up with 1.5k grit. I just wanted to note that even though the top half of the ball didn't come out flawlessly, after using the 1.5k grit, it was really smooth to the touch, which was really cool. For all the metallic pieces, I used a combination of these two sprays to give it a semi-dull metallic-y look, and I'm really happy with how these turned out. I also drilled some holes so these two pieces could attach later. Then for the top half of the Pokeball, I sprayed it down with some white primer so it would be ready to go for painting. I started with some red acrylic paint, but after a while I started to notice that it was really blobby and streaky, and I was not a fan of how it looked. So I rinsed it off and I coated it a few times with this red spray paint. And yeah, this result was a lot better. Now all I had to do was glue down some of the parts and attach the latch by threading the filament through the holes. And bam, the top half is done. Now moving to the bottom half of the Pokeball. It's partially made out of wood, so I tried using some wood stain on it, and it's a cool finish, but it's not exactly the color from the trailer. So I broke out the acrylic paints and got a few base layers onto it. And then came the part I was really scared about, painting in the wood grain. I painted a brown stripe across the ball, but I really was not a fan of that. So I went to the sink to rinse it off, and I came back with a miracle. It looked exactly like real wood grain. As Bob Ross famously said,
and I know this is going to look like we're destroying everything. Don't worry about it. We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
So here's how I made that happy little accident. First, I painted the streak across. Then using some tissue paper, I started at the center of the streak and tried to rub off as much paint as I could. Then, after dipping it in some water, I dabbed the middle parts a bit, and it created these really cool wood streaks. And yeah, I was really happy and surprised how this all came out. I guess lesson learned here is, even if you're scared of screwing up, still try to dive in head first, and you might be surprised with what happens. Now all that's left to do is glue in the metal-looking parts to the bottom of the ball, and thread some more PLA into the back of the hinge. And so that the ball wouldn't roll all over the place, I also printed off a stand. And here it is, the completed let me try reprinting that stand. After a quick reprint, here it is, the final Pokeball. Now, you might be asking yourself right now, wait, but what about the steam from the beginning? Well, the trick I did for that is I went to my local store and bought a big block of dry ice. But the issue with that is cold goes down, heat goes up. But I thought if I could get enough heat generated, there would still be enough vapor to go through the top regardless. So I tried heating the ball with my soldering iron. That didn't do anything. And then I tried heating up some water and setting the ball on top of that, and that really didn't work. So for the final shot, I just ended up shooting it upside down. Well, that about covers everything for this project. If you liked the video, please leave a like and share it with your friends. For a small YouTuber like me, it really will help my channel grow, and I really appreciate it. Again, thanks for watching, This is Big Rig, and keep trucking on.